Let's open the meeting, and Mr. Ake, would you run the meeting, please?
Certainly, certainly. I'd like to call the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting to order Wednesday, April 27th at 1 o'clock p.m. Would Kim, could you please call the roll, please? And note the presence of a quorum.
Larry Carino,
Here.
Jim Ake,
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Yes?
We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Kim. I would like to have any comments about the meeting minutes from the March 23rd, or excuse me, the last
February
meeting,
23rd.
February.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, March 23rd.
March, yeah, 23rd. Any comments? I call for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of approving the minutes as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on down the agenda, there is one change to the agenda because we had a special meeting yesterday to approve the resolution 22-107, action item number 9, because we were up against a timeline and a deadline to opt in for the opioid settlement. So that is taken off today's agenda. Otherwise, the agenda will go through as stated. So the next, we don't have any bid approvals nor construction standards specification changes, but we do have a change order, which is action item number 3. Jeremy, are you presenting this or Jonathan? Okay, very good.
Yeah, action item number 2, Westfield Park culvert change order. So we've talked about this project previously. We are replacing a twin culverts under Westfield Park at where the Monon crosses. 3D is the contractor who was the low bidder on this project. This project actually bid in July of last year. We have had some permitting issues on the project that we're still working through. And frankly, we had some internal delays on providing a notice to proceed for this contractor related to some personnel issues. And as a result, rather than constructing this project in fall of last year, we ended up starting construction. You may have seen some paving that's ongoing as part of this project already here in the spring of 2022. As a result, the contractor did ask for a change order for escalations due to material and labor cost increases from 2021 to 2022. That amount is in the amount of $133,149, mostly related to pavement costs and fuel costs that we have seen increases on. The original contract was for a little over $1.2 million. The new contract amount is $1,361,881. As I mentioned before, some of the permitting issues we're working through, I won't go into detail on that, but we do anticipate those to be resolved and the box culvert portion to be starting in June of this year. So with that, unfortunately, I do ask that you guys approve this change order. It is warranted. And there is another option, I suppose. If you didn't want to approve the change order, we could rebid the project. But I would say with pretty high confidence that if we rebid it today, we'd see an even higher price than what we're facing on the project now. So with that said, I would entertain any questions.
Any
I have one. In the itemized bids, mobilization and demobilization is going up about 20%. First of all, what is mobilization and demobilization, and why a 20% increase?
So fuel costs mainly is the fuel and labor costs are really the reason behind it, but mobilization and demobilization is simply a pay item that it does take the contractor, it does have to expend money and time to mobilize to get equipment on site, to get it parked and located in a safe place, as well as removing that equipment from the site once construction is complete.
And there's a 20% increase in that? It sounds outrageous.
Yeah, we looked into it, we asked around, and unfortunately, some of these increases we're seeing that we did check it out and we do feel like it is warranted, unfortunately.
Comments?
You know,
I will say, to add to that, typically mobilization and demobilization is factored in as a percentage of the total cost. And so likely some of that unit price increase is coming from just an increase in the total cost of the project. That is how contractors typically operate when it comes to mob and demob. Unit prices is a percent of the overall cost.
I'm not real comfortable with the answer, but okay. It just doesn't sound, you know, if I, as a homeowner, if I were having a remodeling job and they threw that at me, I would probably have a fit. I don't know what arguments we have, but all right. Okay.
All right. No further questions. I'd entertain a motion.
so moved.
Second,
All those in favor of change order action item number 2 signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Jonathan. Action item number 3, contract agreements, USI Consultants and City of Westfield, 161st Street and Oak Roundabout supplemental number 1.
So as you guys are aware, we have a roundabout project at 161st and Oak. We had a design contract with USI Consultants in the original amount of $245,880. Part of that contract was utility coordination on the project. If you recall, there's a very large water main on the south side, as well as several pipelines running from northeast to southwest through this project. Beyond the original scope of the project, there has been substantial utility coordination efforts required on this project, mainly working with the pipeline company and citizens on the water main. As a result, the contractor has asked for an additional, not the contractor, the consultant has asked for an additional $15,000 supplemental, as they have expended their entire budget allowance for that effort. Typically, I would say that we'd be pretty skeptical about a supplemental for this work. I will say that USI has done an outstanding job on this project, using their budget to the fullest. They've done several redesigns of the roundabout, moving it around to try and avoid other utility impacts, and has been really outstanding to work with in keeping this supplemental to a minimum. I recognize the level of effort they've had to put into this design is far exceeds what they originally anticipated. I do think the $15,000 supplemental for this work is warranted, and it will also help us to avoid additional costs for utility relocations potentially in the future before we go to construction on this project. So I would ask that you approve the $15,000 supplemental for additional utility coordination work on the project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I'm struggling with that one.
Okay.
Have they encountered additional work that they did not count on? And is that to be our cost?
Yes, so they have encountered a far greater level of coordination, I would say, than was initially assumed on the project.
Is that because of the quality or lack thereof of the utility
I think
world that we're being asked to pay for their incompetence?
I think there's probably a little bit of that. I will say that more realistically, they've had to redesign the roundabout several times to help try and find cost savings to avoid utility conflicts. If you'd like us to reword the supplemental to actually reflect the additional redesign of the roundabout, I'm happy to do that. I felt like the supplemental just saying utility coordination was sufficient, but if you'd like us to revisit that, I'm happy to talk to the consultant about it. I will say that the level of redesign they've had to do probably exceeds this $15,000, and they've actually found savings in other aspects of the contract to apply to that redesign. And in general, I will say the consultant has done, not just on this project, but on previous projects, has done a great job stretching their budget to the maximum. Personally, I do think it's warranted, but I'm happy to talk to them if you would like me to.
And then this is Jewel, just going to chime in. We are currently working with USI and Jonathan on an eminent domain matter where we have relocations that are significant hindrances. And I can tell you that I've had to deal with them quite a bit and go through their records. We have two separate utilities that are involved in this pipeline and then the water company. And it's just a complicated area and it's a big project. And so I know that I've had to deal with them a lot more than I normally have to deal with relocation assistance in eminent domain projects.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, their documentation on their correspondence with these utilities has been second to none on the project thus far.
Any follow-up? Larry?
Curiosity, how are we paying these additional costs, both on the last subject and this one? I mean, do we have funds to pay this?
We do. We have certainly in the capital improvement plan, we've got road impact fees that we are utilizing for construction. And for the 161st and Oak project, I'll double check, but I believe the PE portion of this comes from
PE,
professional engineering services. Sorry. I believe that money is coming from NVH, but I'll double check on that. The short answer is yes, I feel confident that we have money to pay for it.
Okay. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
second,
All those in favor of approving action item number 3, the USI Consultants of City of Westfield, 161st and Oak Roundabout, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
I would guess this isn't the last of these kind of things we're gonna see, is everybody's costs are going up all over. Just, Jonathan, when you come up, just tell us you've done everything you can to avoid such, and, you know, that'll go a long way, and I know you do, but it's,
Yep.
everybody's gonna be fighting for a lot less dollars.
Yep. Understood.
All right. Moving on to action item number 4, City of Westfield Environment, E. and Elizabeth S. Moore agreed findings. It was a taking, I believe.
So, yeah, and I'll jump in on this one. This is for the 196th Street project. We needed to acquire right away for the Moore parcel there. Based on the appraisals and our offer, we couldn't come to terms, so it moved into a condemnation state. As it was going through the court proceedings, the court-appointed appraisals valued this parcel that we were acquiring at $50,700. Which and then issued an order for us to submit that money to the court, and we did so. The Moores then have the right to appeal that dollar amount, which then goes to a jury trial, essentially. And in that jury trial, or in between, in that phase, we have some negotiations or a settlement type conferences. And essentially, we came to terms for a purchase price of $62,000 for the parcel. It's about a half an acre, just under a half an acre, which is a delta of, I believe, $11,300 or $12,300. So we agreed to pay that. Just to give you a little context behind that, if we go to jury trial, it's a minimum of $25,000 for that process on top of whatever that outcome and verdict is. So in this case, quite honestly, and the value of the land up there, we probably would not have came out very well as quickly as that's escalating out there. So essentially the order is um, telling us to submit the order comes from Hamilton County Court to submit the additional money to the court for distribution to the Moors, and then subsequently settles the case.
The additional amount's 11,300.
Yeah, 11,300. As you can see on the map, we already have rights to the property, which happens at issuance of our check to the court at the first phase.
Yeah.
But this will resolve it and allow everyone to move on.
Any questions for Jeremy?
No questions, but I did find a typo, I believe, on item line 8. If you go to that and go down to line 8, you got the wrong, they got a 2011 date there. Is that correct?
Nope, I don't think so.
Sorry, I was talking and I had myself on mute. This is Jewel. No, that should be 2021. And
This
so,
document comes to us from the courts, correct?
well, this was drafted by opposing counsel
Okay.
for settlement, and we have to agree to the terms of it. And then if we agree to it, then we execute and sign it, so we can make that change, indicating the 2021 date.
All right,
Way to go, Larry.
at this time, I'd entertain a motion.
I told you I actually read this
You
stuff.
did, I'm impressed.
I read it too and didn't notice.
I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Well, I've got one more
Oh,
question
okay.
on the, did I understand that right? They're taking it to jury trial.
No, not anymore.
No, if they were, we would have to pay $25,000?
Correct.
So the way that the process works is outside of the jury award, if the landowner gets a penny more than what the city's last offer is, we are responsible for up to $25,000 of their attorney's fees. That does not even include the thought process of the attorney's fees that the city would incur to take it to jury trial. So if you're talking about just the legal fees to take a matter to trial, this is set for a 2-day jury. You are looking at, $20,000 to $35,000 for that trial on your fees, with the potential of being hit with a statutory $25,000 award if they get anything above what our last offer was.
Okay.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion
Second,
grudgingly.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving this action item number 4, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Action item number 5, City of Westfield Daystar directional drilling and 2022 Centennial sump pump line repairs.
I'll take the
Wes.
lead on that.
All right, Wes,
Um,
thank you.
This is to continue our ongoing efforts with our Centennial sump line repairs as we've done for the last several years. I reached out to 3 different contractors. That would be IRE, Daystar, Miller Pipeline. I did receive a response back from IRE. They were unable to place a proposal. Daystar did place a proposal, and Miller Pipeline on 2 different occasions never failed to respond. There's less locations this year than there have been in past years, and I think it goes without saying that that's because of the increased costs of materials now. But we are under budget for this fiscal year, so I am seeking an approval for the proposal. And I am happy to provide any additional information you may want to see. If you guys would like to see a more itemized breakdown of the repairs, locations, and materials, I can provide that as well.
is this within reason
Yeah.
of
Com-
what we've
com-
done in the past?
With the exception that we're doing less than what I would hope to do, which might warrant a conversation for future years if we're going to see this increase in costs for materials.
It is I have a twofold question here. One is, how have, Daystar's been involved with this, they made some repairs out there. How have they held up? And is this the solution that is
Sure.
working?
So
So that's first, question one.
as of this year, I did take one complaint from one of our kind of early repairs from 2016. We scoped that line. There was no issue on our end. The issue was on the homeowner's end.
Okay.
So I feel pretty confident that in the last several years since we've started this endeavor, it's been pretty successful to the degree that I am getting calls from our local municipalities, Carmel and Fishers, in terms of how we're handling it because they're experiencing the same thing. So yes, Daystar has done the vast majority of these repairs, and they have been pretty instrumental in just coming up with a plan that works because it's a very custom installation.
Then the second part of my question is how, do you see an end to this?
Yes, I sat down at the end of last year with Jeremy to start talking about like, where is the end for our ongoing efforts? I am a little over halfway done with that community. That doesn't mean that every single house in the last half has a sump line, obviously. But we are contracted with consultant Christopher Burke Engineering to take a look at our stormwater master plan. And we've incorporated Centennial into this master plan to see how much more can we expect? Where is that insight? And should we be considering putting more dollars towards this to finish at a faster rate? Again, I think it all falls back on, if we're gonna see an increase in cost, it's not getting cheaper for us. Now I'm seeing less on my return for my budget, so hope that helps clear it up a little bit for you.
Well, and so the study that Christopher Burke is undergoing will sort of shed a little bit more light.
At least from a dollar amount for what we see now. So it'll give us an idea like where those locations, those remaining locations, I've provided a pretty detailed map of that. But it should give us a little bit better in terms of like a dollar amount. If we were to potentially do it all of it next year, we would have that idea what that dollar amount would look like, so.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Wes?
No, that's been a complicated, ongoing situation.
We have, I mean, I will say, we've learned from the mistakes of the past. We've changed our construction standards around, we've worked with developers. I mean, there is some silver lining to all of this, albeit unfortunately at a cost, but we've changed a lot of practices around, and I believe other people have learned their lessons as well, so.
And it is worth note for Larry's reference that this subdivision was not built under city standards or under city purview. It was inherited when we annexed that area, and it was all constructed to county standards. So as a part of that annexation and agreement, we agreed to own the under drains as a part of the road network, which is why we've had this. It's been close to a decade that we're doing this annually. Fortunately, what Wes is doing now is more permanent repairs. So we're not doing the firestorm pop-ups that were flooding people's basements. So we've gotten kind of beyond that. Now we're looking at holistically how to fix it for the long term.
We started with more of a temporary repair on a very small budget, and it worked for a little while. And then yeah, temporarily. And then the complaints start coming in that we didn't quite hit the mark. So we've done more of a permanent repair that's.
Do the residents of the development, are they putting anything into this, or this is strictly the city?
It is city-owned infrastructure, so
Okay.
we wouldn't expect them to. They do pay stormwater bills.
Yeah.
And stormwater fees, but there's no special assessment or anything like that.
And we've determined a clear delineation between homeowner from this point to that point, city.
Yes,
That was an issue in the very beginning, if I recall.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have a pretty firm stance that those efforts are being made from the curb to the back of sidewalk, roughly our right of way. in the chance that there's something wrong with a property owner sump line beyond that point to the house, I get them involved with our contractor. If they've already mobilized one time, they get quite a cost savings to potentially just put a new sump line in for them, and they often bite on that. Very rarely do I come to an issue where there is a problem with their sump line and they refuse to do anything about it. I simply make a nice stub for them in front of their lot, and they can pay for that at another point in time. As long as my infrastructure is good and we've done our good part, that's pretty much where we draw the line.
Has
Okay.
Daystar been doing pretty much the whole project? It's kind of their baby then, so.
It's so custom. I think that's why these other, it's a niche market in terms of this directional drilling, and that's where it falls in, but it's so custom. I feel like companies like Miller Pipeline, they don't even want to bother with it. And I've offered multiple times, it just, nobody really seems like it's interested, but as part of our, our rules here, after a certain dollar amount, I have to reach out to them, so.
You guys are actually putting in new pipe? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, without tearing up the roads,
Right.
the idea is get out in front of our resurfacing efforts, so.
And Daystar knows the routine by now, so it's.
Very good, very good. I'd make a motion to approve action item number 5, City of Westfield and Daystar Directional Drilling 2022 Centennial Sump Line Repairs.
I'll second.
I have a second by Larry Clarino. All those in favor of approving action item number 5 as stated, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Action item number 8, City of Westfield and Resolution Group on-call engineering service. And this is a master service agreement.
It is. So Resolution Group is a new name in Westfield. They are out of Indianapolis. They are really leaders in erosion and sediment control, inspection and training. And this contract before you is a master on-call with a not to exceed amount of $20,000 for Resolution Group to provide some supplementary inspection and training, particularly in regards to erosion and sediment control in construction areas in Westfield. We do have a erosion control inspector, and Wes as well keeps an eye on those types of items, but especially in the spring, when we see rainy, the rainy season, it's very difficult for us to keep up with all of the inspection requirements that IDEM requires us to do through construction. And so the thought is that we could get some supplemental help from a consultant to come out and provide some of the additional documentation that we need to provide in case IDEM questions us on our inspection practices, and Wes may.
Yeah, I can kind of fill in on that. So we're obviously permitted with the state to have a MS4 or municipal separate storm sewer system permit. As such, the EPA has a set of rules that go to the state level, that go to the local level, and we are required to do 100% inspections for every private development annually. And given the growth of the city, it's hard to keep those eyeballs there. Every 5 years, we go through an audit process with IDEM, and they're going to be looking for that documentation. So this will keep us in compliance and IDEM.
We done this in the past.
We've had
Engaged.
a few rounds of audits, yeah,
Okay.
and they go pretty well.
But is your question,
No,
have we
my was
engaged a
wondering if we
consultant?
engaged
No, this is new.
consultant
This is new.
in the past, but there's benefit in doing so, and the cost is fairly minimal
What is the cost here?
It's a not to exceed of $20,000.
on an annualized contract.
If we make it annualized, you'll see it again next year, if we
Okay.
choose to do this. We keep the not to exceeds fairly small for newer consultants, just to see how they perform. And I will say, I'll just add to it as we go into budget season. This is an example, as far as when we think about budgets. If we had some additional folks on staff, we could probably do this in-house. But when we are spread very thin in certain situations, we have to look to the consulting industry to help supplement our resources to make sure we're staying in compliance with some of these regulatory agencies.
You mentioned training that they provide and certification, I guess, along with that. So who are they training? They're training our staff or are they working? with
Yeah, we had
developers?
talked about some additional training just for our infrastructure inspectors to make sure that they know what to be looking for out in the field. Resolution Group, I can tell you, does a lot of inspection. And they're currently doing a lot of the erosion control inspection for the North Split project downtown. So they're very familiar with both large and small construction projects, and they're really leaders in that field.
And
We're
so-
also required to have training annually for our staff.
Hmm.
So this would be another opportunity to check that off of our requirements with the state, so.
So it saves the city money because you don't have to have additional personnel to perform these. You can keep up the record keeping and maybe forgo some fines if you relax in doing so.
That's the key, yeah.
Yeah,
So having this documentation is really helpful in telling the story if we are questioned by IDEM to show that we are doing our job as far as necessary inspections.
thank you. Any other questions?
The compensation that's in Appendix D, item A, right? Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Should be a $20,000 not
Yep.
to exceed.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
I entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries 3-0. Moving on, we have action item number 7, City of Westfield Lockmuller Group, on-call engineering services.
So similar idea. This is an on-call with Lockmiller Group. Lockmiller has done quite a bit of work for the city previously, including construction inspection services for East Street project, which was a successful project. Their folks did a great job communicating with stakeholders in that area. They also do design work. They have a full service road design department. We are asking for a master service agreement with Lockmiller Group for miscellaneous engineering design work, and I'll talk specifically of what precipitated this contract. We're looking at 191st Street very closely. Jeremy and myself have met with several city councilors in the recent weeks to talk about priority projects for the council. Every one of them has talked about 191st Street from Tomlinson over to Spring Mill. And one of the big issues we see on 191st Street when it's open, we're currently under construction to the east, but when it's open is entrance into Grand Park. We get a lot of queuing for folks making lefts into Grand Park. We've always anticipated this Grand Park Boulevard and 191st Street being a roundabout. They're up just northeast of the GPEC facility. And the time is very critical for at least a preliminary design of this roundabout, as we have the Harvest Trail project that's going through the zoning process currently, which is these parcels just to the west of the Monon, David Weekley Homes residential project. There will eventually be commercial along the frontage of 191st Street. As they're going through their design, for efficiency reasons, it's a good idea to show them where they need to tie into curb, where storm sewer needs to go, so that we're not, when we do build the roundabout, we're not ripping out infrastructure and replacing it unnecessarily. So it's really forward thinking to coordinate with the developer to show what they need to tie into. So this contract is in advance of Lockmiller Group doing a preliminary layout for the roundabout at Grand Park and 191st Street. And they will provide line work to the developer so that they can coordinate their designs accordingly. Before you ask, in the master service agreement, there is not a not to exceed amount in this master service agreement. This just establishes the relationship. The task order will be task order number 1 for the preliminary design, which will come to you at the next Board of Public Works meeting with an actual not to exceed amount.
I have dealings with the north side of 191st, so I'm going to recuse myself in regard to this matter. So if you guys have any questions for Jonathan about this.
Just one little one. You'd mentioned Lockmiller will be designing the roundabout, isn't that something that has to be put out for bid?
Just a preliminary layout
Ah,
of the
okay.
roundabout. So we'll be well under the threshold for an RFP
Gotcha.
on this
Okay.
project. If for some reason we elect to expand the limits to a point where the design would be over that threshold, we would do an RFP. In which case, we'd still have the on-call in place for Lockmiller for other design services that may come about in the future.
Yep.
But it wouldn't necessarily be for this project.
Okay.
Larry, I'll add a little bit to that too. In the state of Indiana, professional services do not require an RFP regardless of the value. We do RFPs if the contract is above, or we believe it's gonna be above $150,000. And that is a qualification-based selection process. So it doesn't have dollars and cents assigned to it. But legally, we could contract $1 million to design the whole thing without an RFP process, but we don't typically operate that way.
We go above and beyond on that just to be transparent.
Gotcha, and I appreciate that, because like I said, I'm still in the learning phase for this job, so, okay.
Yep.
Entertain a motion.
So move.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. And I, Jim, recuse myself from the vote, so motion carries 2-0. We move on to City of Westfield, action item number 8, and VS Engineering for a professional services contract.
So we've for a while now looked at our downtown area, particularly around the Union Bible College, in an area south of 32 along Union, down to 171st Street, inclusive of Cherry, Roosevelt, and College, as roadways that need a little attention and frankly need likely some reconstruction, inclusive of stormwater facilities. So if you drive through here on any given day, you'll notice there actually aren't any stormwater infrastructure items within this area. There's a lot of sheet drainage. Maybe there's a miscellaneous old culvert or two, but no formalized stormwater infrastructure. This project is looking to change that. So we did receive ARPA dollars. This project is slated to receive some of those ARPA funds, and it is a stormwater and roadway improvement project within those limits. I can show you a better illustration within the contract to give you an idea. So the limits of the project, South Union down to 171st, College and Roosevelt as those cross streets. On this picture, north is to the right. And then Cherry Street, basically south of the bridge over Grassy Ranch. So the red outline is the limits of the contemplated project. This contract is for engineering, preliminary engineering services, PE, to start to do a drainage study to determine how big some of these pipes need to be and where the infrastructure needs to go, as well as to design the storm sewer, roadway improvements, and take us all the way to bidding to build this project. The total cost of the design contract is $335,500. I feel like this is very much in line with what we'd expect to pay for design services on a project of this scope. And with that, I would ask that you approve this contract, but I'll take any questions before you make a motion.
Thank you. Eric?
I've asked a lot of questions up to this point.
Okay. Larry, do you have any about the project?
nope,
Very good. At this time, I'd entertain a motion.
so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving action item number 8, City of Westfield VS Engineering, signify by saying aye.
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 I
Motion
was
carries.
looking at the temperature. I was gonna make a motion for you to raise the temperature.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion carries 3-0. The next item was dealt with yesterday in a special meeting on 4/26. And so we move on to the consent agenda. We have the Westfield Police approval of to hire one more officer. And then the April bond information. Any comments?
Yeah, so this officer would be number 68, which puts us one from being one where we're full. So basically 68, we're, I'm on. This is our last one. So.
We hope.
Till the
Yeah,
next one.
it's fun to need a flow chart. So, John Lanning, who you approved last month, will be starting in May. And this is our last one. His name is, Nicholas Clapp. And, he's actually from Anderson. He was, this is a little off what we've been normally doing now that COVID is gone for all purposes. The law enforcement academy is back running again, right? So we went totally to laterals before, so it's time to kind of give a little more balance and go after somebody that hasn't had the academy or any prior experience. We're gonna grab someone fresh. Just provide balance to the agency. And Nicholas is this person, he was a Marine from 2012 to 2017, raised to sergeant in that field. He does have some college. He went to Ivy Tech in IUPUI. He's originally from Anderson. He's engaged, living in Noblesville right now, and he actually is putting or installing countertops is what he's doing right now. So he finds that police job, in which we're going to give him as long as he meets all the next requirements after this approval. So we like him a lot, and like I said, going off the path that we have been doing, it's kind of exciting to actually send somebody to the academy again.
Very good. Thank you for that. Any other questions about the consent agenda?
We're not,
None.
I entertain a motion.
So moved.
second,
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as written, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved, 3-0. And it's time for those monthly reports, I guess, or quarterly reports.
Do we have the bond list? Oh, no, that's part of
That's
the
part of the
consent
consent
agenda.
agenda, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Did you have any questions? All right. So Fire, we'd love to hear what's going on. Exciting times for you guys.
Yes, so I'm not gonna bore you with just reading the monthly report. I'll just hit a few of the highlights. In the month of March, which is this report, we were up about 11% on calls compared to 21. Folks responded to 365 incidents. The biggest thing that's happened since our last meeting in the fire department is we've had 3 individuals come off probationary status as of yesterday. And kind of like what Chief Rush is doing on the police side, we did quite a few laterals for vacant or immediate vacant positions. And then for new positions, we've actually started the academy up as well. So we brought 3 off probation that were from a lateral list, and then we brought on 4 individuals that are new. And so they're in the academy right now, and we're in a joint academy with 6 other agencies. Right now, they're in the EMS portion. It's gonna last 6 weeks. It's hosted over in Whitestown. And Division Chief Hutchison is really the chairperson for the EMS training. Middle of May, they'll start their fire schools. And it'll be another 14 weeks before they finish up with that. We brought on our new fire marshal, Ryan Flores, started this week. He's actually busy out doing things, or I would ask him to be here. And then just another piece that I think is relevant and just good news with the engine that we dedicated in March. We purchased part of that, came with the purchase of the vehicle. It's called a Haas alert system. So as we're driving emergent down the road, it sends for lack of a better term, a radio frequency out and alerts the vehicles that are on the roadway that there's an emergency vehicle behind them. And we get a monthly report on that. So in the last month, Through that system, we've alerted 785 drivers. The folks responded to a total of 72 runs in that apparatus. Our average on scene time was 23.7 minutes. And our average time to the scene is 4.6 minutes. So just some good data for us. And as we continue to phase out some of the older equipment and purchase some new apparatus, this is going to be standard on our stuff. So for the legacy system, the Opticom, where we control the lights and stuff like that, that's not what this system does. We're actually alerting the drivers prior to that. So
How does that work?
Yeah, how does that work? The cars have to have a
yeah, so
latest technology?
later model vehicles
Okay.
that are purchased in the area have it in their radio, and it actually just alerts them, hey, there's an emergency vehicle approaching as they're driving down the road, listening to the radio.
So assuming they actually read the manual on the car, they'll know what it is.
They should, actually, I think with all of the newer model cars, it's standard with that. And we're actually looking and investigating, see if we can put this on our current vehicles now. So it may be something that we request as a budget item for the 23 budget.
So are the Opticoms working or not?
Well, working as in, are they physically working or do they work in general? Because it's kind of a,
Yeah, whenever your vehicle goes through, is it tripping or not?
yeah, for the most part, the Opticoms work. The challenge with those is typically an infrared or a radio frequency. And we could tend to overdrive that frequency and not capture the light in a timely manner. And the city only owns one of those systems. Everybody, all of the other lights that have Opticom are owned by other folks. So one that the city has is working, and we don't have issues with that. The ones that challenge us are the ones that we don't own.
So when you say challenge, you mean they just don't work?
No, it just, it hasn't been nearly as bad as it used to. Purdue would run a traffic study and they would come out to the light and they would unplug it. And we'd have to find out, oh, the light's not working, and run around and plug it in. But I've had zero complaints about them not working, and we
Okay.
did a drive-by the beginning of the first quarter or towards the latter of last year to check them all, and they all worked.
Okay.
So the Public Works now has a contract with Midwest Electric to inspect and repair and maintain all of those systems. And we own the Opticom systems on the State Road 32 signals. We only own the single signal that has it, which is Union or Spring Mill and 161st Street. But the ones along 32, when they were failing, that was our burden. We did put a system in place to fix that. And if there are any problems, please let us know, because we have that work contract.
Very good.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Please.
Yeah, so as I stated, John Lanning will be coming on board on May 9th. And then after Nicholas is hired, then we'll be 100%. We'll be at 69 officers. It's hard to believe. When I started it 12 years ago, we had 38. So it's exciting, it really is. Which leads to my next statement is on tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I will be addressing the entire department. The last time I officially did that was the first day I was here. It's just logistically difficult to get every police officer on the department in one spot. But we're gonna do it tomorrow. We got some big announcements to make. We're coming up with what I call 18-month, 2-year plan of reorganization, really just taking advantage of the staffing and the resources that we have and putting them in the right place to better serve the community, the best way to put it. but it's exciting for me personally, exciting. I'm hoping it's exciting to the rest of the department.
Where are you doing it?
We're doing it at Grand Park. Our building unfortunately isn't big enough to house the
Yeah,
department.
I wouldn't think so.
So we
Maybe we ought to do something about that.
we should. We're going to Grand Park, the cafeteria out there, and we have lunch, and then we'll at 1 o'clock and gonna set the path for the future, as you say. The other item I had, and I brought it up at the all-employee meeting today, and it's really just because it's a fun fact, right? We're in the drone business now, and I don't know if the community, I don't know if you all even know that we have drones.
I did not.
So we actually do. We have drones that operate during the day. We have drones that operate at night. And it's really quite amazing how much we use them and how useful they are. We use them for crashes. We use them for events. We use them for trying to find people, wanted people, missing people. We have, at this point, 4 operators, or what we call pilots, who have been certified, and it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
Believe it or not, it's a state test or a federal test. But we have 4 operators at this point. We'll have 2 more eventually. Joe Hopkins, Chuck Nichols, Rita Chu, and Caden Gephardt are pilots right now. And it's really quite exciting. We've used them for SWAT call-outs. When you're talking, and it's really cool to see where in the past you had to use smoke bombs or explosive devices and risk, the human being going into a building. We can now break a window, set a drone in, and clear a house with a drone. The drone's about this big.
Yeah.
And with the camera on it, and I think it saves lives and makes us more efficient. So it's really pretty cool. But that's all I have today.
Well, thank you for that. I find that just an excellent thing to have. And I'm sure you're gonna find myriads of ways to use it for the benefit of our citizens. Thank you. With that, we have Public Works. Jonathan?
Yeah, so the big announcement would be 161st and Union will be closing Monday, May 2nd for construction of that roundabout. So it will be inconvenient for some who use that intersection. Certainly there are detour routes. If you're coming from the south, I'd recommend using 151st over to Oak or over to Cary, depending on where you're going. If you're coming from the west, I would, traveling through 161st Street, particularly if you're coming to city services or something like that, I would use Oak Ridge to 169th to Union. And so that'll start May 2nd. You'll see a lot of action in that intersection pretty early on, looking at late summer, open to traffic for that intersection. It can't come soon enough.
Jonathan, will there be signs on US 31 that will say 161 eastbound closed?
Yeah, the detour route, signed detour route, I believe does have signage on US 31. I'll double check that. If it doesn't, we could do a digital message board too, like we did on 191st Street if
Yeah,
that's
because
necessary.
otherwise you're gonna get a lot of
I don't,
unknowns turning off and having to turn around and get back on.
yeah, and I will say that the actual barricade will be here and here, so that you can't physically get confused and run into a barricade and have to make a U-turn. So, but yeah, we can, I don't believe there are digital message boards in the contract, but if that's something that is desired to be added, we can do
Could
it.
just be a big sheet sign. It doesn't have to be a digital, but just something that says, don't bother getting off.
Yeah, got it. 191st Street and Chad Hiddle is still closed, but is moving along really nicely. Gotten some really good progress on the western half of that project to date. And we will be wrapping that up and moving to the roundabout portion of the project in early June. roughly speaking, but yeah,
What's
that
the anticipated completion, open up here?
fully open to traffic.
Yeah,
It's a 120-day total closure that started April 4th, so, we're looking at, trying to do the math. in my head
60
here.
some days, okay.
Late, I think it's mid-July, something like that,
Right.
roughly speaking, of course, weather dependent as well.
No, we don't say that.
We've actually, it's rained some, but, for April, we've gotten an okay number of construction days out of it. And then we did, turn on the signal at Tournament Trail and Wheeler Road. I should probably have knocked on wood when I said, that we've had decent weather so far, but we, turned on the signal at Tournament Trail and Wheeler Road on, Friday evening. Seems to be functioning pretty well. Certainly, we've seen a lot of traffic around Grand Park. They've had a couple of really busy weekends here in the spring. But that signal itself seems to be functioning well. It helps to get folks out of, who have visited either Portillo's or some of the restaurants in the Hinkie Center there on the east side of Wheeler, out safely onto Wheeler Road. So,
So how long is it gonna take to get the 32 signal unveiled?
So I believe, I'll talk with our contractor. I believe as early as next week, but I'll double check on that, to get that dual left. There's a little bit of, programming and component work that still needs to be done in the cabinets to get these two signals talking to each other to work efficiently. But certainly, the dual lefts, just from a storage perspective, will be
Oh, it'll be huge.
very useful, so. And that's all I had.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. At this point, that concludes the official agenda. I would ask for a
So
motion
moved.
to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, signify by
Aye.
saying aye. Aye, we stand adjourned. Thank you.